On today's episode, who decides that nonfiction is true? Yes, that is a question. My mom's here. Let's talk about it. Shall I say the truth is out there? Is that the X Files, whatever thing?
Ba-dum-bum.
I don't know. I don't know. Welcome back, guys. This is Books, Banter, and Beyond. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen, and we are going over another fun deep dive topic here. Who decides that nonfiction is what it is? That sounds odd, but that's the question. So, fiction versus nonfiction, we should probably do first. Obviously, when you have fiction, you are pretty much at liberty to make up whatever it is you're making up. Hence the reason why it's called fiction, because the names have been changed and all that stuff. However, I don't know if you've noticed, but some books are semi based on something, but all the characters are fake. So
Ripped
then
from
you
the
kind of get in that
headlines.
whole little
Yeah,
like, is it
yeah,
real? Is it not?
right.
But for nonfiction, generally speaking, there is no overseer of what it is. So other than, let's say, a biography or memoir written for or by the individual or individuals, nonfiction is kind of just done as it is. If it's a science book, the people writing it are usually scientists or professors or whatever. If it's a history book, they're usually historians, archaeologists, but there's no actual governing body per se. And that's what we're going to jump into now. So, not in, US, not globally, nowhere to be found. A nonfiction label relies on author integrity, publisher standards, and reader expectations, really. There's no rule book to it. So, obviously, reader expectations are you and I, anybody reading. You have to go into the book going, okay, if I'm reading a book on space, I am hoping that the person writing is legitimate. And that's not to say that people aren't. It's just to say that if you're reading it, you want to make sure that what you're reading makes sense and is
And would it be fair to say that if you want to learn about something that would be a nonfiction topic, and there's a bunch of different nonfiction titles that are there, you're probably going to grab the one from the person that you think you respect for their knowledge. You know who the person is. Theoretically, they're
sure.
going to give you correct information rather than pulling a no name, which may be just as good, but if you don't know who they are and you don't know their reputation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, if you watch somebody or you follow somebody or whatever, you're obviously going to go from there because your brain automatically goes, oh, this name looks familiar. I know this individual. He or she is more or less reliable. So let's go there. But you do make a good point with the unknowns, or at least unknowns for you personally, because those people also might have some info. So what I always do when I'm checking out a book or I'm learning a book is I'll start with the people I know of, but it'll sometimes say, hey, if you like this, check out this. I'll research the individual, I'll research the topic.
Right, right,
And more times than not, it turns out that individual is just as up my alley as the person that I know.
right,
Um, and obviously, every category has a different rule to follow. So, obviously, history over science is going to have two different things.
right.
Journalism is a big deal because of the whole making sure that you got the right sources, which is why, for me, I like the visual. I like the books written by photographers who literally are giving me their story. They're saying, "Hey, I was in the middle of this. I saw this. I
And
took
here's
a
a
picture of
picture
this."
that proves it.
And here's
Right.
the proof. Now, yes, a lot of people will be very, oh, well, maybe it's fit. And yes, you're free to pick your opinion of that, but also just keep in mind that if you do your homework and you read what you're reading, more often than not, you are going to get a reliable source. You just have to make sure you are pulling from what you are comfortable pulling from, depending on where you live, depending on, you
Right.
know, your sources. Um, so I'm curious because I kind of thought this was a thing. Did you ever think that there was a stamp of approval for nonfiction? Because to me, I always thought you kind of had to, if you're making a product, anything, whether it's, a food, a clothing, a book, you have to make sure it's legit. Otherwise, you can't sell it.
Well,
So,
but we live in the real world, and the real world, there are, as we know, regardless of what time you grew up in and now or whenever, there are levels of of people who are ethical and not ethical, right? And
Sure.
so just be we can stop at that, but and I know the next section that there is some layer of verification that is put in, and that lies on the publishers and the editors and all of that. They have to go through it with a fine tooth comb, right?
Right. So exactly. So when after the book or the story, whatever is written, it obviously goes off to the people who are going to make it all nice and pretty and clean and get it ready to be, packaged, bound, all that stuff, and then sent out. Those would be, like you just said, the editors and the publishers who are going to hopefully take their time, do their homework, and get the job done because that's their job. Their job is to edit. Their job is to fix anything that looks
Right,
funky. In terms of, let's say, science, you also might have academics, professors, historians who may also be asked. A lot of times, people who like I watch a lot of things on, let's say, Egyptian history, and almost every time the person who's speaking says, even though I know my stuff, I always make sure to go back to the other people
right,
and go, hey, this is what I found, this is what I saw. Can you triple check it with your eyes to make sure that I
right,
didn't miss some information? So not most of the time, almost every time, the people who are writing or studying,
right,
they're gonna go to their peers to make sure that they
right.
didn't make
There's
any
an
mistakes
expression,
while
Rob. There's an expression: trust but verify.
there you go.
That's the
There
expression:
you go.
trust but verify.
Perfect. Now, we were talking a second ago about bios and memoirs, and they are actually the least verifiable because most of the time it's based on a memory or a thing that happened to that person, to that family, to whatever. This also could become problematic when you're writing, let's say, a story about a family from history from the
Right,
1800s,
right,
from 1700s. I always talk about people like Da Vinci and Tesla, and we have information on them, but at the same time, we don't have all the information. So what we do have
right,
is bits and pieces of their general lifetime. A great example recently, I think it's a film coming out, it's about Shakespeare. We still to this day don't know if Shakespeare is a person or if it was many people or if it was somebody under a pseudonym. Why? It's not that we haven't done the homework, but there's so many pieces of it because nobody was there that
right.
we're kind of just guessing.
Well, people were
Another
there. Wait. There were
well,
people
okay,
there, but they
we
did
were
not
there,
put it
people.
down. They did not put it down in a way that we could verify it.
A great example is actually the study of dinosaurs. We colored dinosaurs the way we did them because that's what visually looked good. It turns out most of that is completely wrong. And they actually recently have been able to pull color from the bones and actually found out that more of them were more of a green tint than they were of a brown. Some
Right,
of them were more colorful than they were dull. So you have to keep in mind that even though it looks good and even though it sounds good, you still have to do the homework.
right.
Um, so, with all this said, is there a nonfiction? I mean, maybe it's better for me to answer because I read more of it than you do. Is there one that I would trust more, the academic, the journalism, or the memoir? I mean, I would have to go with the academic, and that's strictly because they overdo their homework. They do it to the point where you're like, okay, I get it, fine. Stop telling me that it's been 5,000 times checked. I get it. So for me, I think it's the academics that would really
I would
be
agree.
the most trustworthy if I'm picking that type of book.
I would agree 100%. And I think the challenge we're all having now in the world of artificial intelligence, if you go and research stuff, depending on which platform you're researching, it only researches up to a certain time. And so,
Right.
right, so like, and we don't, it's not important what the platforms are particularly, but all of them say verify before you use this. Here are the sources
Yeah.
that we used.
I do that. I mean, even on these videos, I always caveat that what we are saying is strictly the information we have found. We may have information that
Right,
might not be up to date, but I always caveat. And even like when I was in the other bookstore and I was working in retail, I'd always caveat with, yes, here's the answer to your question, but if
right,
this can't be done, let's find a different way to go about it, because
right,
that's
right,
the, and that
right,
comes to our last section here. What do you have to do to verify? Use
right,
your judgment, use the author's judgment, bunny ears, transparent information, study up on it. If you are somebody into space, use the resources, but also make sure the resources sound legit. Legitimacy is kind of not necessarily the thing. It's more of everything sounds legit. Which of these legitimate things is actually closest to the right information? So caveat everything you're doing to make sure that you are comfortable with
right.
what you're reading.
Yeah, and I again, not to hammer this home, but nonfiction is not just books. It could be articles that you're reading online, nonfiction,
True.
theoretically. And I think this is important for our viewers to really hear us say this, is that when you read something or hear something, no matter where you're reading that nonfiction, where verify it, make sure that it
Yeah.
literally is true, because the world that we live in right now, there is so much garbage that's being put out there that is being put out there as true, and in what we think as some of these legitimate publications, only to when you go to verify it, you realize, well, they took it from this place that wasn't quite verifiable in that place, and then they have to come back and do a
Right. And
disclaimer.
then you got to redo the entire thing and have to
Right?
clean up
So
the.
this goes everywhere. It's art. I think it's art. And I guess what I'm saying, I think it's partly our job to verify as well, not just the scientists and the journalists and the academics.
Yes, yes, definitely. At the end of
Agree?
the day, you are the one who, if you want to make sure everything sounds right, just do your homework. And most of the time, it only takes a few minutes to do. Just
Right,
look up what you need, and once you are comfortable knowing that what you found is good, then you can, move on to your
right.
next subject. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good
interesting
point. Just
topic.
make sure that
Interesting
you
topic.
are, you know,
No, I think it's an interesting topic. So we encourage you to go visit the Next Chapter Bookstore.shop. It's an online bookstore, gently used books. You know what I'm going to say next. I love those used books. All different topics. You have nonfiction books and fiction books. So check them out, find something, and if you're not sure it's legit, go and verify, and then you can buy that book, right? Any last thoughts, Rob?
no, I think this was a really fun topic to do. Can't
Yeah,
wait for the
very.
next deep dive.
Very, very, very. We love seeing you guys. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.